Okay, good. I'm recording. So I'm going to go ahead and come here. Okay. So in this webinar, I'm going to talk about paraphrasing specifically and about how we can do it as multilingual writers in a way that maybe native speakers or monolinguals don't think about. So let me give a little bit of background first, and then I'll go into some practice to talk about how we're doing this. So paraphrasing is a really big challenge for everybody, but is an even bigger challenge for people who are trying to paraphrase in a language that's not their native language. Often the kind of strategies that you hear when we're paraphrasing or when we're teaching paraphrasing is like, oh, just look at it and then say it in your own words, or tell it to a friend, or just read the text, understand it, and then put it away and say what you remember. All of that requires a massive amount of vocabulary and grammar knowledge and ability to understand context and connotation and denotation, all of these things that make that kind of request really hard for multilingual speakers. But multilingual speakers and writers have another toolkit that we can use as we understand grammar. I know you don't think you understand grammar. If you speak many languages, you're like, oh, grammar is the most confusing part. But we can use this kind of, okay, I'm going to focus on this part, and then that part, and then that part, in order to still come up with a good paraphrase. So we're going to talk about how to do that to come up with a successful paraphrase, kind of sentence by sentence in this webinar. I'm going to talk about these 6 different strategies or tools we can use in order to create a good paraphrase. So we'll talk about each of these separately as we look at samples. But what I want you to keep in mind is that a good paraphrase will use many of these together in a sentence to change a sentence in many ways, and then that will make it a good paraphrase. If we say, okay, well, I changed the sentence using 3 of these different tools, then that's probably a pretty good paraphrase. And the more changes we can make and it's still correct and it still matches the meaning, then that's like the better the paraphrase probably will be. Okay, so that's my background. That's my, hey, buy in. Are you ready to do some work? Me, I'm going to do the work in this webinar, but I'll create some materials for you to use to test yourself that will be available on the Nightingale Writing Center's website that you can do to work. Or you can come and work with me or another writing coach to build up your paraphrasing strategies more. Okay, let's do it. So the first strategy, the first tool we're going to talk about is one that if you probably know, it's like, oh, synonyms. Just use words that have kind of the same meaning. So I picked 3 sentences for us to work with in this webinar in order to try and practice. So I'm going to put me there. Perfect. So to try and practice. These 3 sentences come from different learner papers. I have their permission to use these anonymously, and so we will go from here. Okay. So we're looking at it and we're thinking, okay, what other words do I know? We are going to look for synonyms. Okay, so community. Maybe I know the word neighborhood. Sports, activities. R, R-A, we're going to skip over R, popular. Favorite. Okay, favorite, sure, favorite. Activity, pastime. Both children and adults alike. I don't know how to spell pastime, apparently. Pastime. With young and old people. Too. Okay. So we've changed almost every word here. The second one, checking your problem solving with friends and quizzing one another on what you know can make it. Right. So for this, I'm just going to do one and we'll skip. If I have participants or if you want to come work with me on them, we will go through. So if we're using synonyms, we're trying to think of a different word for every word. This is not a good paraphrase yet. I've only used one tool, so not finished, but it's a good first step. I'm going to copy this to use it on my next slide. So now we've got this idea that we can cut a sentence into phrases. When we're teaching language, we often call this chunking. Like we want to split the sentence into different chunks. And we use the word chunks instead of parts because chunks has this idea of like, some parts are small and some parts are big and some parts are complex and some parts are simple. So kind of the word chunk just has this feeling of it. So we want to think about what parts of the sentence go together, what words have to stay together to keep this meaning. So if I have this sentence, we're talking community sports is one part, that's one chunk, right? So I change that to neighborhood activities, that's mine. So I'm gonna say neighborhood activities. Are, the verb by itself is by itself. A favorite pastime, a popular activity. This part goes together. I'll make this part not yellow, that's ugly. How about the green? We got that. And then with young and old people too. I can say with young and old people is one part, and the two is another part. With young and old people, and then I've got this idea of two. Okay. Identifying what the parts of the sentence are is important as we move into the next steps, because we want to be able to keep those parts together, but as we move them around, we will work on them more. Come to the writing center and I'll do the other two with you. So then, once we've cut them into these different phrases, then we want to think about a different order for them. So what order can we put these in? There might be many different orders we can put them in. Oh, my colors didn't stay. All right. So I'm going to say, well, I want to say young and old people, got that first part, both enjoy neighborhood activities, both enjoy neighborhood activities as a favorite pastime. So I've put these now in a different order. So we can see that this one really doesn't look like this one. This is probably a good paraphrase because we've been able to change it. We've changed almost every word, and we've put the phrases in a different order because we've ID'd and split them. We can do a couple more things. One thing I've done here is I've actually changed the verb, which is my next strategy, which is changing the verb. So instead of this using are a favorite, I said enjoy as a favorite pastime. So I've changed the verb there. Ooh. Oh, disaster. I'm clicking the wrong place. So we have this sentence that we've been able to change. We can also think about changing the parts of speech to think about what are words here that I know different parts of speech for. I've got an activity here. That's a noun. So maybe I want to say active, okay? Active is an adjective. So how could I say that? I can say both enjoy being active in the neighborhood. As a favorite pastime, maybe it doesn't fit anymore. Maybe it's already included. Both enjoy, so I can delete it. If I decide that it's already included in my sentence, both enjoy being active in the neighborhood, then I've got it taken care of. This looks even more different now. Then the last one, I've actually deleted my sentence because I want to think about being able to combine or to divide sentences. This example we've been working with doesn't really work on this one, although maybe we could imagine, actually, I'm going to do that. We're going to imagine that we did have that, so let's change it. Because I've lost the past time, so I want to keep that, right? Past time. Favorite pastimes. So I want to have this as another idea in a separate sentence. So sports with friends is a favorite pastime. For almost everyone. And then I've kept this idea and split it into two sentences to make it a little different. these are our 6 strategies, our 6 tools that we can use. We can start at any of these places. We can look at synonyms first. We can look at changing the sentence structure first. Whichever step is clearer for you to get started with is where you should start. It's important to remember we need to make many changes. In the first step, it's probably not a good paraphrase yet, but we can find our way to a good paraphrase by taking it step by step to finding our own way to say it and explain it to a friend. I look forward to working with you on more paraphrasing. I hope you will come and work with us in the Writing Center. Thank you.